Flights from Bali won't be banned. The federal government pushing back against some coalition criticism on that front after viral fragments of foot and mouth disease turned up in Australia. The Agriculture Minister is optimistic we can remain free of the devastating disease, but others say it's not worth the risk.
In Indonesia, it's a race against time to curb the country's first outbreak of foot and mouth disease in 40 years.
It's important that we all remain calm.
But border breaches have stoked anxiety. The live virus is just a flight away after traces of FMD turned up in imported pork from China and undeclared beef products from a traveller returning from Indonesia.
That means having to close the border to keep that safe for ourselves, and that's what we need to be doing.
If it has to be a temporary measure, that would be great.
You know, if it got here, then close the border, what does that mean?
I think you'd have to shut it now.
That push firmly rejected by the Albanese government.
We have no plans to close the borders.
Even the Nationals leader and former Agriculture Minister says it's too soon to hit the border button.
Not yet. We don't believe that they should be taking this off the table yet.
There are concerns any closure could damage Australia's relationship with Indonesia, a key trading partner, where the memories of the overnight live cattle ban in 2011 are still fresh.
An extremely drastic measure that will have a whole range of unintended consequences. Our view is that we're not at that point yet.
The pressure is now on biosecurity officers to stop any spread at the border, as travellers are also asked to do their bit.
I think it's good. They got on the cards as well, we have to mention before 30 days that if we visited any farms or animals.
Whilst we were in the flights, there were a few announcements, reminders around declaring at the biosecurity.
Biosecurity is everybody's business. Everyone has a role to play here.
Citric acid floor mats to clean travellers' shoes will be rolled out in international airports. Andrea Crothers, Sky News, Canberra.
Joining me live now here in the studio is the National Senate Leader and Shadow Minister for Infrastructure, Bridget McKenzie. Great to see you. Welcome back. And it's been Senate school today, so a lot of your new colleagues here learning the
ropes of what I think, and I think increasingly in recent times, it's shown to be one of the most important chamber in Parliament. So it's
including a couple of young stars like Jacinta Price.
Absolutely. So we are so excited in the Nationals to welcome both Jacinta Price from the Country Liberal Party in the NT, a fabulous warrior for Indigenous Australians, particularly women and children, and also Ross Cadell from New South Wales. So New South Wales Nats will have a full contingent of 2 senators again. So great to welcome them. They're learning the ropes so they can hit the ground running come next week.
There is a massive issue facing the agriculture sector right now, the foot and mouth disease, trying to keep it out. What's your view when it comes to the border with Indonesia?
Look, I don't think we need to close the border with Indonesia. I think this government actually needs to get serious about stopping foot and mouth at the border. When we were in government, we had record investment into biosecurity measures. We took it very, very seriously. Whether Barnaby Joyce was the Agriculture Minister, myself, or indeed David Littleproud, there was one thing on our mind, and it was keeping our status as a trading nation clean and green, and that means being very, very tough on border restrictions. And it seems this government, this minister, been caught in the headlights, the blinding headlights of a crisis, and has been found wanting, delaying decisions that should have been made weeks ago. Foot and mouth disease, as we know, and I know your viewers are well aware of, $80 billion industry, and that's ag just alone. As the Shadow Transport Minister, I've been on the phone with transport companies, the whole supply chain within the livestock industry more broadly, and it will have catastrophic events.
Murray Watts says they acted as soon as they possibly could on things like the disinfectant mats, and
well, that
you can't just go to Bunnings and pick up a few mats, is the way he put it. The department has acted as quickly as it could under his direction.
Well, I think, you've seen David Littleproud, the current Shadow Minister of Agriculture, holding Murray Watts' feet to the fire since day one on this, and he has failed at every single step of the way. That isn't the case. industry was calling for footbaths weeks and weeks ago, and the current minister, the Agriculture Minister of Australia, was laughing about thongs, people coming back from Bali in thongs, and the disinfectant would be really troublesome for their feet, and didn't want to put Australian travellers through that. Australians are well aware that we owe our economic fortunes to our fabulous agriculture industry, and that is underpinned by our status being disease-free in things like foot and mouth disease. And I am absolutely confident that Australians heading off to Bali for a well-earned break with their family will not mind coming back if it takes a little bit extra time to make sure their shoes that they're wearing, their gear that they're bringing back is disease-free, because they don't want to see us shooting cattle from Cape York to Hobart.
No, indeed, but there has been a few mixed messages from the coalition. Karen Andrews saying there should be shut borders with Indonesia. Barnaby Joyce have the same view. You and David Littleproud have a different view. What's going on there?
Well, I think the onus is actually on the government. The delay in decision-making leaves us here where we are today. These decisions needed to be made weeks and months ago. When we were in government, we made the tough decisions. We had African swine fever sweeping through the pork industry to our north, particularly in China and Southeast Asia, and we took very decisive steps. When COVID arrived, we took very decisive steps about being very forward-leaning with our biosecurity agents as people got off those planes in those first days and weeks of COVID.
I spoke to a WA beef producer.
This minister has been asleep at the wheel.
I spoke to a WA beef producer, a prominent producer in the West, who says they want the border shut, along, that similar view to what Karen Andrews and Barnaby Joyce has said. What's the problem with closing the border to Indonesia on this?
Well, we actually have to make sure that our borders, we're stopping disease as they come in. I mean, this isn't the first disease that we have a status being disease-free on. We've seen varroa mite come in, etc. There's a whole raft of African swine fever, etc. Our systems at the border need to be able to respond to these sort of crises as and when they occur. And that WA farmer is obviously responding to the fact that he doesn't have confidence that this government can stop foot and mouth at the border, because, Kieran, you and I have both heard from friends and family who have returned, who've even been honest on their biosecurity vetting as they exit the plane and have said, yes, I may have been to a farm, or yes, I've been hiking in the outdoors, and have just been waved through biosecurity. So in terms of our...
So you don't have confidence in the measures in place by the department, or in terms of biosecurity,
so when
the Department of Agriculture? Do you think it's inevitable that this disease will get here?
I hope not. I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. I know David Littleproud's doing everything he can to stop it, but we're not in the ministry. This minister needs to be much more directive, stop flip-flopping, if you like, make a decision. Being in government is tough. You are presented with crises. When and if they come, you have to act. Enough getting angry at people, act.
He's put the footbaths in place now.
Well, no, they're not in place. We've got thousands of people.
He's moving to do that. What else can be done?
Well, but that should have been a decision, Kieran, made weeks and weeks ago. It was being called for by industry weeks and weeks ago. He said we didn't need it. We had systems in place. We didn't want to damage Australians' feet in thongs as they came back from Bali. That is a minister who does not understand agriculture, how it underpins our economy, and the impact that this disease will have, not just on, the 25 million cattle we've got here or the 70 million sheep we've got in the present, but for a decade, our trade status internationally.
You've seen the measures have picked up the FMD in a beef product from Indonesia, in pork being sold in the Melbourne CBD. So these measures undertaken by the government have been working, at least to some extent.
Well, they're measures that have been in place for a long, long time. As anyone that's been involved in agriculture knows that we've got systems in place in our biosecurity system that do pick up fragments of, disease in certain products at certain times, and we have a swift action for that. That's not because this government is in charge. That has been time immemorial. What this government needed to do was act earlier. It is still not acting quick enough. The fact that we've only got the foot mats going into Darwin and Cairns, when you've got 16 flights and 16,000 Australians returning from Bali a week, the risk is huge.
So just explain, what is the reason behind yours and David Littleproud's view and the Farmers Federation that the border should not be temporarily shut?
Because we can stop the disease at the border with the right measures. They need to be done. And I am very, very happy, Kieran, if Murray Watt can't find the footbaths for Sydney and Melbourne Airport to actually get the thousands of people that are coming back from Bali and being waved through biosecurity washed down, not just the feet they have, but their shoes in their backpacks. I'm very happy to offer my time on a weekend to hand wash those shoes at the airport myself. And I'm sure there will be an army of people, not just from the cattle industry and the sheep industry, but right across rural and regional Australia who'll join me, because we understand the risk and this government doesn't.
And you still think you're hopeful that it can be kept out?
Absolutely.
Given
it would
those
be
measures.
catastrophic if it got in. We know that foot baths work. We know that actually getting people to wash their shoes either before they leave Bali or when they return. And yes, it will mean longer queues and Australians will have to wait longer in the airport to get out. But that is the price of...
How devastating would it be if FMD...
Catastrophic.
If
Absolutely
we were to see an outbreak here?
Yeah, so I've been on the phone, obviously, to transport industry throughout. They're very, very concerned about the supply chain issues. We'd actually have to shut down for 72 hours straight away as soon as it's seen. That means delivery of cattle to abattoirs, our fresh meat supply. All trucks would stop. The shipping of livestock as we know it. And so there are some huge repercussions, not just for livestock producers themselves and that industry, but right across our economy.
National Senate Leader and Shadow Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development, Bridget McKenzie, appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.